Hi friends, host Eric here, host Talking with Famous People, and I am responding to AvenuZ's comment, which asks, what are some good ways to distinguish between an energetic, talkative, INFP and ENFP? Good question. The answer to that question is, the key distinction to be made between the INFP and the ENFP is that the former, the INFP, is a subjective judger, first and foremost, a subjectivist, and the ENFP is an actor, or an action-taking type. So they're very different in their natures. They can display similarly, as you indicate in the question, if you have a talkative or more socially active INFP, such as Kit Kats, for example, who's a person who I haven't seen her in a while, but she's come around quite a bit. She's an INFP who was fairly active in her talking. I think the thing to note about INFP and ENFP is ENFP is going to be fundamentally optimistic by nature. ENFP, because they begin with extroverted intuition, they are much more likely to be enthusiastic about specific courses of action, and they're more likely to actually do the things that are necessary to be done. Like ENTP, they see SE as the evil function, but it's also kind of a loose cannon function for them, and they're going to end up doing a fair amount of SE stuff as a consequence. So if you're assessing between an INFP and an ENFP, one thing to ask them is about possible courses of action into the future. INFPs will tend to hum and haw and go back and forth about what's better or what's worse because they are first trying to determine how they feel about it, and that's a much more complicated matter than trying to determine whether or not it's possible or what they could do with it metaphysically, what kind of meaning they can make out of a given course of action. And EDOMs like to consider possible courses of action openly, even if they don't necessarily commit to them. INFPs are further down the way from doing anything. So remember that the INFP, like the INTP, has ST as their polar, the place of least resistance. They don't understand it, and they don't do it well. And so if you've got somebody who's active in accomplishing a lot of things, chances are they are an ENFP and not an INFP if that's the choice you have between. Another thing you could do to check is you want to understand what they're seeking. Are they seeking SI or are they seeking TE? So in order to determine that, you sort of ask them how they feel about help in SI areas. If they feel good about help in SI areas, then there's a good chance they're a fourth slot SI, which makes them an ENFP. If they feel like, no, I don't need help in that would annoy me, I can do that myself, then they're a third slot SI person, and that makes them more like an INFP. So those are some considerations to take into account. The other is, regarding FE matters, the FI DOM is FE ignoring, whereas the FI tool function user, ENFP, is FI countervalued. FE countervalued. So if you ask questions about FE, the ENFP is much more likely to state an opinion like, I don't like that, that's fake, that's inauthentic in some fashion, or express some other countervalued FE notions, rather than the FI DOM who's sort of going to, if given a concrete example of somebody's FE being prioritized over authenticity, may comment on it, but by and large will be more successful in ignoring FE things and not having an opinion about it, basically. So those are some quick ways to consider as far as things to consider when trying to distinguish between INFP and ENFP. ENFPs have a very sunny disposition about them, and INFPs usually don't. Some of them do, but most INFPs end up kind of damaged because they're kind of fragile. If you have one that's raised really cautiously or carefully or attended to well, then that might not be the case. I've seen some INFPs who I think are really well adjusted and healthy, and I've seen others that I think have struggles that burden them heavily. When you hear about individuals talking about the pain self, the individual identifies with that, chances are they're an INFP. That notion of the self being splintered into different selves that contain the various emotional states that comprise the INFP's existence is an INFP specific phenomenon, I believe. So, lots of things to consider. Hello, I'm currently making a video in response to, what's his name? AvenuZ, who asked me to distinguish between ENFP and INFP. So, that was an unexpected visitor. This room is not being recorded normally, but I'm recording it here. Thanks for watching, Famous People, and thank you to AvenuZ for the question.